الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Tonight, inshallah, I want to share a hadith and then follow up with another hadith that is very relevant to our times. And that is that all of us are somewhat worried about our well-being. And that's something very natural, and it's something that as human beings we are accustomed to, and also we're immune. We are species that will come across difficulty. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ, that Allah has created the human being, al-insan, or mankind, humankind. Every human being is created in difficulty. And he didn't say with some difficulty, but in difficulty. So meaning from the time of birth, if you look at just our coming in this world, there was a sort of, or a level of struggle and difficulty and pain that all of our mothers bore and all of our mothers went through. And that's why, and therefore, in our tradition, the rights of your mom and the huquq of your mom and all of our parents, in particular our mother, is much higher than any other relationship that we have with another person. The Prophet ﷺ was asked that who has the most right over me, and the Prophet ﷺ said that your mother. And then he asked again and he said your mother, and then he asked for the third time and he said your mother. And then he was still waiting for something else. He was waiting for a different answer. How is it that 3 times I'm asking the same question and I'm getting the same answer? There must be a little more to it. And then he tried to ask for the 4th time and he said, then whom? The Prophet ﷺ said, then your father. Meaning that 3 quarters are for your mother and 1 quarter for your father. So that tells us that how much right that our mothers have over us. So now that difficulty that our mother gave and went through to us and for us, that is a big investment that a person is giving part of herself to you, and she is putting all that up for you and going through all that difficulty. Fika, so the beginning, it starts with a lot of difficulty and pain all the way till the end. There are times when there are good, but there are many times that are going to be difficult. And therefore we have all these beautiful du'as, and for the past few nights we have been talking about these beautiful du'as. And tonight, inshallah, I wanted to share and come straight to the hadith of Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, who narrates many ahadith of well-being in terms of the supplications and du'as. One of his du'as that he narrates, and he says that whoever recites this verse, حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. Again, حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. If he reads it 7 times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be sufficient, and Allah will suffice him from all of his difficulties and all of his affairs. All of his affairs, not just the affairs of this world, but as well as the affairs of the hereafter. So what is it so special about this hadith, or this supplication, or this dua, these words? If you look at the meaning of this verse, which is a verse from the Quran, but of course it's also a supplication from Allah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also acknowledging him as the most powerful. And what you are saying in the beginning, Hasbi Allah, that Allah is sufficient for me. So just the first, in the beginning of this dua, is that you are acknowledging that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for me, and he will be there for whenever I need him, and he will answer my calls whenever I call out to him, and He will fulfill my needs whenever I ask Him for those needs. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect me whenever I seek His protection. And Allah will be there for me. Allah will be there for me in every moment, in every time, in every situation, in every condition, in every circumstance. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for me. Hasbi Allah. Why is that Allah is so important? That you're saying Allah is sufficient, although we have all of our means. All of our means. I will talk about that just in a minute. You are saying that because there is no God except Allah. You are acknowledging and saying, La ilaha illahu. Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illahu. There is no God except Him, except He. He is my Lord. He is the one who will be sufficient for me. He will be there for me. And there is no one who can be at that level. Now the question will arise that, well, we take means, we take things to assist us in any situation, whether good or bad. Um, so that's where the second part, or the third part rather, comes in. عليه توكلت, that I rely on God. Tawakkul is reliance. Tawakkul is reliance on something. You have sometimes reliance on other things, but I rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He's the one who created it, and He is the one who has put the benefit or the harm in it, and through Him the benefit will reach me or the harm will be avoided. And that's why I rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, the proper meaning of tawakkul, or reliance on God, is that you take all means. And you know that God is the one who created and made these means a vehicle, a term that I will use to fulfill my needs. Allah has given me wealth, I would use it to fulfill my needs, and to put food on the table, and to fulfill the needs of my family if I'm the head of the household, and so on and so forth. So I rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I do my own. I do my own work. I do my the best of my ability. And therefore, even when we talked about this pandemic, we talked about tying your camel and then rely on God. That we took our measures of precaution and to protect ourselves, and then we are content with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined for any one of us. If we get sick, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah intended it to happen, and Allah will protect me if He wants to protect me, and Allah will take me out of this and bring me back, and will benefit me from this difficulty. And there is benefit and there's wisdom in that. So I rely on Allah subhanahu, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects me and that was destined for me, I still have reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in either case, alayhi tawakkaltu. And why I have reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is no God except Allah, if we put these two together, it gives us the fourth part of this dua, which is وَهُوَ رَبُّ الْعَرْشِ الْعَظِيمِ, that He is the Lord of the mighty throne. And the Arsh here, some of the scholars say that is His kingdom, as we understand that He is the Lord of the entire universe. He is the Lord of everything that we see and we know. The things that, even the thoughts that come to mind that might happen, even those things that will be created later on, those are also the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has control. So He's the Lord of the mighty throne. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the greatest. And that's why I have to rely on Him. So this dua indicates to having reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want to follow up with another hadith, like I mentioned in the beginning, which I think it's very, very important for us. And I want to take this moment and take this time and opportunity to share this hadith with you, for me, for myself, and for all of you to think about this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, by the way, the dua that I mentioned from Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, and is mentioned in some of the books of the du'as, like Ibn Sunni and others mentioned this dua. This second hadith is mentioned by many scholars, and they have authenticated the sanad, the chain of narration, is that um, mentioned in, of course, in Bukhari and Muslim, in the two most authentic books, and also many of the other hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ahabba an yubsata lahu fi rizqihi wa yunsa'a lahu fi atharihi falyasil rahimah." That if a person wants, what are the biggest fear? What are the two major fears that all of us are going through? If not all, a lot of us are somewhat going through. If not going through a lot, perhaps the fear is definitely there, I think, for every one of us. Number one is that we are afraid of our well-being, of what's going to happen to my health. Am I going to catch this virus? Am I going to survive? I'm going to be okay. Um, that fear is there of well-being. And a second is in terms of our finance, in terms of our monetary, our wealth, in our well-being of our wealth. And that's something that we're all kind of somewhat afraid, or perhaps maybe a lot of us are going through some difficult times, that we have, maybe some of us have lost our jobs, or perhaps maybe got laid off, or not making enough for those who are self-employed, and so on and so forth. So there is that fear. So that fear is on both sides, from the physical aspect and from the monetary aspect, from our wealth and finance. So those two fears are there. And this hadith is so beautiful, that in these times the Prophet ﷺ is saying that whoever wants to have barakah in his rizq, whoever wants to have barakah in his wealth, and barakah, it means that you have whatever you have, you're happy and content with that, and you have that with in abundance, and you're content with that, with whatever you have. And also you have barakah, and you have good life, في عمره, in one other hadith, وينسأ له في عمره, that you have given barakah, and you have been given well-being in your life. فليصل رحمه, reach out to your relatives, reach out to your relatives. This is a time that to be kind to your relatives, especially those who are very close and near and dear to you, those who are with you in your family, those who are then closer to your parents, your siblings, your other close relatives, and perhaps maybe distant relatives that you have never reached out to. And perhaps maybe they are in need of someone to just call them up and say, "Hello, how are you?" فَلْيَصِلْ رَحِمَهُ. From all the du'as that we have been mentioning, and all these supplications and all the hard work, that's definitely there, and that's definitely going to benefit, and that's going to be fruitful for us. But let's also think about reaching out to our relatives, those who are close to us, next to kin, those who are related to you. فَلْيَصِلْ رَحِمَهُ. Perhaps maybe also I'll go a little further and say that for those relatives that who are they have cut off their ties with you, or you have cut off your ties with them, it's time to reconsider, and and also keep in mind that we are just around the corner from from Ramadan. Ramadan is just a week from now. Next week, Thursday night, we'll have our first, perhaps first Taraweeh, the first night of Ramadan. It's 1 week away from Ramadan. So let's put barakah in our time, in our life, in our age, in our well-being, and also in our wealth, in our rizq. And let's reach out to our relatives. Let's reach out and seek forgiveness from them, and call them up, and perhaps maybe be nice to them, be nicer to those whom we have been already nice to. And take this opportunity, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of us, and to make us from those people who reach the month of Ramadan and they are well prepared. They are physically prepared, and more importantly, they are spiritually more prepared to establish the month of Ramadan, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows all of us to um, to welcome the month of Ramadan with the highest state in our well-being, in our iman, in our faith, in our physical body, and in particular in our mind and our heart. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give shifa to all those who are sick in our community. Many people have reached out and they want to stay anonymous and they don't want to be mentioned. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them shifa. نسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفيهم. نسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفيهم. نسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفيهم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our folks who are out there helping and supporting in the medical field or volunteering in any way to help people out in this difficult time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. May Allah protect you all and protect your family and put barakah in your rizq and in your health. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.